All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, the Lakers Fast Break, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. Another episode of. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. Man, I love it when I'm echoing. Although, actually, after millions of hours of editing, I'm kind of tired of my voice. I'm sure a lot of other people are as well. But if you can, and you're not tired of my voice, you can go ahead and get us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, also as well, if you can like, share, subscribe, do whatever you can to support what we do here at the Lakers Fast Break. It is truly appreciated. As independent podcasters, both myself, Rafael, and also LakerTom is someone who puts out an independent publishing outlet known as Lakerholics.com. We would truly appreciate any support that you give all of our outlets. It was a great victory today for the Lakers. They just basically put it on cruise control after the first quarter all the way through. They really put down a great effort in that first quarter and actually that first half overall, and just took off from there. 135 to 115. They put it on cruise control in the second half over the Portland Trail Blazers to take a 3-1 game lead in the best of 7. So they're up 3-1. Kind of concerned with back spasms for AD, although we don't know how serious they were. He didn't look too serious because he looked kind of fine on the bench, even though he sat out most of the second half. Damian Lillard tweaked his knee, so that's still something that we're going to have to look at as well. And with me today to talk about all the variables for today's game, including as well for the day 8 already in the NBA playoffs, are two of my good friends. First off, you got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at NBADraftJunkies.com. It's just a tremendous site indeed. And for everybody out there on Facebook Live, you are about to witness some great amount of videos here when it comes to all the draft prospects that you're seeing right now. Look at that. Look at all these videos right there. So if you are an NBA draft junkie, or if you're really into the NBA draft, or you just want to know more about who you think your team might be interested in for the upcoming NBA draft, there is absolutely no better place to go than NBA Draft Junkies, which are about ready to hit over the 12,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. Plus also listen to his great show, NBA Draft Junkies, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. The Run the Floor podcast as well. Awesome, because I was on it. I'm just so thankful to be part of that podcast. But also, you can go ahead and check out his awesome site, NBADraftJunkies.com. It is Rafael Barlowe. And Rafael, we'll get into you first, my friend, before we hit up LakerTom. Not the way you wanted to go ahead and challenge on Kobe Bryant Day.
Well, I mean, it's like you can't be too upset that, the Lakers came out and they played inspired basketball and they just dominated from the start on Kobe Bryant Day. I was thinking earlier today it would be kind of weird, even kind of selfish of me to want my team to kick the Lakers butt on 8/24, but
remember they won that initial game back after the Kobe funeral.
Yeah, and I actually missed that game. I was on the plane coming back from China, and so I remember being at the airport trying to stream my computer and bootleg it, do the whole firewall of China. And I saw maybe the pregame stuff, and then after that I had to get on the plane. So it was just crazy being on the plane that whole time, not knowing what happened in the game. But even then, I just, the Lakers just had too much going on that day. It was such an emotional day for them. While today they've, it's been months, and even though it still seems like it didn't happen not too long ago. But yeah, I just felt like it would have been kind of selfish for me to be mad if the Lakers won on Kobe Bryant Day. I mean, I wanted the Blazers win, but after the first 5 minutes, I knew it was going to be a long night. I was just hoping. I was like, please, if we can just get it to 10 at the half, maybe we can.
I saw you on Twitter.
Yeah, we saw that.
Then next thing I know, I was like, I wanted 10, not 30. So after that, it was just, it was just a rough day. But I think I'd rather lose that way than a buzzer beater. I'd rather get smacked by 30 than lose the way the Clippers lost.
Well, if there's any consolation, I mean, this will hopefully give the time off that Nurkic got to sit because he rested quite a bit in this game. Some needed rest for the game coming up on Wednesday. And then you're also talking about hopefully when it comes to Damian Lillard, he'll be feeling a lot better. I'm kind of worried about the knee because those are the kind of things that you don't think it looks too serious, that it ends up being a little bit more. Yeah, non-contact. Yeah. He was limping, but he was still trying to play on it. So he's thinking it's all right. But then you realize later on there might have been some more damage done later on that might necessitate some work on it. So I'm hopeful that he will not have that kind of injury because you never want to see that with any player.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I hope he's okay. But if he's, if it's a situation where he's 50-50, then we're down 3-1. Don't need to risk it. I think, just
we said that about Luka. We said that about Luka. Look what happened.
Yeah, and
he's 21. Big difference.
But even then, though, they said, like, when I saw him leaving the arena that day, he was walking fine. He wasn't limping because during the game he couldn't put any pressure on it. But then they showed him he was fine. He wasn't limping. I think he just maybe just had a little bit of ice on it. I didn't think he played the way he did, but yeah, I'm hoping it could be a similar situation. He's a game time decision, and then he comes out and scores 40 and hits a buzzer beater on Wednesday. I mean, I would take that in a heartbeat. But I mean, for that to happen twice in a row in a matter of 4 days, that would be pretty incredible.
That would be pretty incredible. But again, you don't want to win that way with Damian Lillard, hobbling, and obviously you don't want to see him actually have any type of long-term injuries as well. You do want to see, as far as for your end, Portland come back strong and show some fight in the next game. And for the Lakers, you just want to see them continue what they were doing, like in today's game. And with us also today, he's been very patient. Only 7 minutes in, you get to speak, my friend. I know him as Tom Wong, but you know him as the man behind the best Lakers site out there. More detailed, better articles, podcasts for the Lakers Fast Break, videos from Rafael and NBA Draft Junkies. It is the best place to go for everything Lakers. It is Lakerholics.com. And LakerTom, when you saw LeBron going to the game with the tributes to Kobe that he was wearing, and you saw the mindset that he had, even when they were up 30, you still saw that type of focus and anger on his face. That told you that the Lakers were going to be difficult to stop today.
Well, I think one of the most wonderful things that's ever happened to Lakers Nation was the way that Kobe embraced LeBron taking the mantle from him, and the way that LeBron embraced taking that weight off of Kobe's shoulders. I really had a feeling before this game that it was going to be one of the best performances by the Lakers, and that first half was probably the best first half they played all year long. You have to give Portland a lot of credit. I mean, I think that the big problem that Portland has is they just did not have enough talent to match the Lakers. And on top of that, they had expended so much energy and karma just getting to where they were to get into the playoffs, and had played so splendidly that, that first game, basically when the Lakers couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with their shooting, that's the type of thing it takes for this team to lose. And if everything is clicking right and they're hitting on all cylinders, they're pretty much an unbeatable team. The fourth, game 5 coming up, I sure hope that Dame is okay. I almost worry more when there's a non-contact injury on a knee or something like that than when you're banged by somebody, because those are the injuries that I don't know whether it's just bad karma or what, but they always seem to come back with more damage than expected. So I sure hope Dame is well. They feel so dinged up now at this point in time that I just hope that the Lakers don't fall into a gap and get hit with one of those games that you just don't expect, where, almost gave me shivers when Rafael's talking about another, 42-point performance by Dame with a step back three to win the game.
We need it.
We definitely don't want that to happen 2 times in the same.
Well, Rafael says otherwise. I'm just going to say that right now.
Yeah, we need it, or
LeBron went into that game. I remember during the tribute to Kobe when LeBron basically went out there and took the entire weight of Lakers Nation and said, basically, I'm going to carry the Lakers the way that Kobe carried the Lakers. And we've seen playoff LeBron 2 games in a row now, and there's no doubt that he can still take it up to that level. And that's great news for the Lakers. Anthony Davis, hopefully the back spasms. I think that those were basically an after effect of getting that elbow from Whiteside, because he was that bothered him a little bit on the bench. I guess it hit him in the Adam's apple or high up on the chest, right underneath there.
Yeah.
The one nice thing about AD is that he has a reputation before he came to the Lakers of always being dinged and missing, 2 or 3 games here and 2 or 3 games there for minor injuries. He hasn't done that at the Lakers, and I think that he's appreciated the opportunity to play with somebody like LeBron, who's just such a perfect fit for him. And that's really what this series came down to. In the end, it was what I felt at the very beginning, that you have two of the top 5 players in the league right now on one team. And if those 2 players play to their potential, that team is going to win that game. I find it interesting that we see Houston struggling now, and all of a sudden it's like Oklahoma City has a virtual home advantage. They went back to OKC Orlando and pulled out 2 wins.
Virtual home advantage.
Same with the Mavs. They come back to virtual Dallas, and Luka hits that shot to pull them up even.
Well, we were allegedly in virtual Portland tonight, but I didn't see any Blazers.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You're right. We were. That's true.
The past 2 games actually were in virtual Portland, and unfortunately,
though, you can't. I was so sure that they were going to call a foul. The ref, they should take his whistle away for not calling a foul on the last layup by LeBron, so that we could have scored 81 in the first half, just as the ultimate tribute to Kobe.
Well, there was a 24-8 lead for the Lakers. I
saw that too. But 81 in the first half would have been really sweet. But 80 was nice.
Well, you guys, before we get into statistics on why this happened and how the Lakers got to such a great first half, I think you guys are going to be missing the key on why the Lakers won, and that is basically this. Before the game, Charles Barkley guaranteed that Portland would win, and basically right there was the kiss of death for Portland at that point in time, because he's, I think, 0 for his last 3 on guarantees, and it was so funny to see at halftime all the memes, all the Twitter shots of Charles Barkley. That was just so funny. Between that and the Twitter shots at Chris Webber, I think it was just truly hilarious. But seriously, getting back to the game itself, I mean, Rafael, what do you think was the key factor? Because for me, I think it was the defense that really got everything in tune. The only thing that they were allowing was Nurkic to have a little bit more of a way inside. They were letting Nurkic have his way inside, but said, you know what, Nurkic, you're going to have the game. We're going to focus on a lot of other things. And for the most part, Gary Trent, Melo in that first half, and to an extent, CJ and Damian were effectively, not, I won't say shut down, but they were effectively hampered by the Lakers defense in that first half.
Well, I mean, the Lakers set the tone in the first few possessions. I mean, it was 15-0, something like that?
Yes.
It's hard to give any team in the NBA a 15-point lead. I guess we saw it yesterday with the Mavs spotting the Clippers 21. But yeah, I mean, they just had way more energy to start the game. The Lakers came out as if it was Game 7 and their season was on the line. And the Blazers' energy looked as if we still have another game left. It's not over for us. And we have to play – well, I shouldn't say we as if like I'm on the roster collecting a paycheck. But the Blazers have to play almost a near-perfect game just to have an opportunity. I mean, we're missing too many guys, and we have a lot of inexperienced guys getting playing time, and can't afford to spot the Lakers 15 points. Can't afford to just put them on a foul line, give them easy baskets. I thought, and I'm being maybe biased as a Blazers fan, and I never want to like blame the refs, but I felt like in the first half the calls were definitely leaning towards the Lakers. But again, that's not an excuse. It's just, I mean, the better team won today. They came out with more intensity. LeBron was on a mission. That's the LeBron I fear. As a Blazers fan, I love the passive LeBron who plays like Steve Nash. That's totally fine with me. But when he puts his head down and he's going to the rim, and AD is rim running and he's active and he's knocking down jumpers, it's just going to be tough for us to win. And then especially like KCP. I mean, he took a lot of heat after game one, but it seems like he hasn't missed. And then Danny Green made some shots. And from there, I just knew, like, okay, it's not our day.
And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, LakerTom, was, yes, you could obviously start with AD and how hot he came out to start the game, and LeBron, his intensity, and the fact that the Lakers really gave out some effort, put a lot of transition points in there, at least for the start. But I think it was the players that you don't normally talk about that, well, when you talk about them, you talk about them.
I talk about them a lot.
In a denigrating fashion usually, but you know what? Danny Green came.
Constructive criticism, Gerald.
That's a lot there's a lot of constructive criticism right there for you. But with Danny Green and JaVale McGee and KCP, they all came to play. They played hard. They played well. They made shots. Caruso even made some shots. Kyle Kuzma was effective throughout, except for handling the ball, which was an issue for him today. But outside of that, I mean, by the supporting cast, it really was a great effort.
JR hit his shot.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about that in a second. I think, listen, Danny Green has gotten a lot of criticism from me for his shooting, obviously, but also for his defense, which I thought has really been declining and subpar for most of the season. If you take a look at his stats or McGee's stats before the All-Star break, after the All-Star break, and then in the bubble and then in the playoffs, it's like a chart that goes straight down almost. Each one of those four situations, their net ratings go down and their plus minuses go down. I was really pleased with Danny Green's play tonight. I thought he played his best game defensively. He was moving much faster and much quicker than normal. He was making good reads. He was not getting picked off every single time. And that really helped ignite the defense from the start.
I think this is a carryover from the last game. Well, hold on, Tom. I think this is a carryover from last game. I thought he really played well.
From the two blocks at the end of last game?
Yeah, I really thought he played very well last game.
He's been very tentative, and it's the same thing with shooters. If you're tentative on defense, that one step in the wrong direction or that wrong anticipation really puts you out on an island. And he was afraid to be making. It was almost like he was afraid to shoot the three, and he was also afraid to make an aggressive move on defense. That he just didn't have the right anticipation. So I thought that was a big factor tonight. And then JaVale McGee, the other guy who basically gets a lot of criticism from me, primarily because of the same thing. He played well before the All-Star break and then has been on a steady decline after the All-Star break on the bubble and in the playoffs. McGee played much better today. His defense was outstanding. His shot blocking was outstanding. He made some good plays on offense. We had 6 guys in double figures, which was great. Kuzma hit his first 3 threes. I think Alex Caruso played a very good game. I think Alex has done exactly what Frank Vogel wants, which is speed the ball up. Every time he was coming down court, he was really pushing and picking up the pace and coming down at a fast pace, taking pretty good care of the ball and playing his usual steady defense. And LeBron James, I think LeBron is angry right now. He's a really angry man just because of what's going on in the social justice situation in America. And combine that with the dark LeBron as it was being talked about on the broadcast. Chris, and I think there is an element of that LeBron is angry at this point in time, and he came out and he was not going to. He didn't settle for anything. It wasn't those threes that he took were not settled threes. Those were threes because he really felt like he was going to make those threes, and that's a big difference from when times that I've seen when LeBron feels and looks tired. He looks like a 35-year-old player versus the king of the court like he was tonight. The Lakers are rolling. They've got 3 straight now. They need to put the Portland Trailblazers away in the next game. They don't need a close game. They need another blowout to make sure it happens, and then get ready for I don't know whom. That's going to be interesting. I was surprised. These playoffs are really strange because we've got 2 playoff series that are tied where the underdog has hit a great shot to come back and win and tie up those series. And in both cases now, it raises a lot of questions because the Lakers were sort of anticipating that their next 2 opponents were going to be the Rockets and the Clippers. And it's probably still the favorites that the Rockets and Clippers are going to be the next 2 opponents, but it's sure not a sure thing. This is the bubble NBA, and it's not the same as when you have home court advantage. And it's different players that seem to be rising up and other players that haven't been able to rise up in the bubble. I think it's a great sign for the Lakers that both AD and LeBron are playing well. The team's defense still looks really solid. And Frank Vogel, who came in 6th in the Coach of the Year voting, deserves a lot of credit for the great defense that they put on. You look at the stats individually from each of these games. Cranges Basketball has been putting out some great tweets with and a really long analyses of all of the different plays being run, the different results on all of the different ways that the Lakers are guarding the Portland guards outside, and how many points they're getting per possession when they hard hedge, how many they're getting off of the shot, off of the passes that come off of those hard hedges, and they've really upped it up. They're from a period of time where during the regular season you saw them basically use traps and hard hedges as surprises. They weren't doing it steady. They would do it on every other play or every third play against Harden or third play against Dame. Now they're doing it on every play. They found a formula that they think works, and it's something that is going to be carried through when they go against teams like the Clippers. That's one thing you can tell, that Dame will work, Harden will work hard against those types of plays in order to get their shots, because they know that the game counts on them. Guys like Giannis and guys like Kawhi Leonard are going to make the right play. They're going to pass the ball. And that is a big benefit for the Lakers. So I think if the Lakers can continue this defensive strategy, I think we'll see it being applied across the board as they move deeper into the playoffs. I still do believe that they need to play a lot more AD at the 5 as we go deeper into playoffs, and they need to give Kuzma more minutes. One of the things that I really disagree with is that Kuzma's minutes went up really high. He was like the 2nd most minutes in the bubble, and Vogel promised that he was going to give him big minutes in the playoffs. Well, right now what he's done is he's cut his minutes by 5 a game, and he's given those 5 minutes a game extra to Danny Green, who up until tonight hadn't really performed, and if you compare the performances, doesn't deserve those minutes that Kuzma does. Kuzma the Lakers cannot keep Kuzma unless he's a starter. So they have to do one of 2 things. They either have to move AD to the 5 so that Kuzma gets those minutes, or alternatively, play him at the 2. And he's showing that he can guard big guards. He's not a stopper by any means, but he definitely now can hold his own. And on every defensive possession that I watched him tonight, he did an excellent job. Waiters looks like he's got some great moves offensively, but boy, a couple of the defensive plays that he made just totally lost contact with his man going across the middle. I think it was I can't remember who it was, but he just let his man go completely through the outside and had a wide open three because he really lost track of where he was in the game. And it's obvious that the doghouse that he's in as far as playing minutes go is because of his defense.
Well, I'll tell you what, there is a lot of defense going around, but one of the things, Rafael, that I wanted to ask you is it seemed like they were making a concerted effort to say to Jusuf Nurkic, go ahead, score as much as you want. I mean, they were doubling up top. They were going and making sure any drives to the basket, they would have one or two guys over there, leaving Nurkic to make a lot of putback baskets, a lot of offensive rebounds, but they just didn't seem to care, which is actually different from what we've seen in the first few games where the Lakers dominated the defensive boards. So this seems like an effort that they just said, you know what, Nurkic, score all you want. We're going to go ahead and try and stop everyone else.
I saw a little differently. I just saw that he played better. He came out. He was more active. He wasn't throwing up those flip shots around the rim. When he did get the ball in traffic, he was trying to hammer it and dunk it. And I just wish that the other role players matched what he brought. Yeah, I just feel like he's just more intense. I mean, he's probably got a lot of criticism for running out of gas and not being able to step up to being the third option and play like he was playing in the bubble. I do think the Lakers made some slight changes, but I just felt like he came out to assert himself more than the other players. And I think Gary Trent should start. I mean, I think that if the Lakers come out and kill us on the glass, that's one thing which they have been doing, but it's not really making too much of a difference when we have both of our bigs in anyway. So Start Trent, loosen the defense up because Dame and CJ can't get to the rim when we have the double big lineup in.
It's apparently become the case, yeah.
Yeah, it allows AD to just float and play free safety, and then I mean, that guy is just too active, too long, too agile, too athletic to not have to really guard anybody. You allow him to just guard a space. I mean, he shuts down your entire offense. So I'd say move Whiteside out the starting lineup and just take a shot at just bombs away and make AD have to guard somebody.
I think another factor that one of the things that I had been thinking about with respect to the Lakers defense of the three guys that are left after you double the guards up on top. One of the things I've always felt is that you don't leave guys alone in the corners.
Yeah.
And I think the Lakers did a great job of that. And I think it's one of the reasons why it was really a lot of one-on-one play when the ball went inside to Junkies on the rolls. I think that makes a lot of sense to me, that if you're going to double Dame up on top, let the center roll down the middle. You've still got one guy in there, but the main thing is just don't leave those corners open, because that's the play that you don't want them to make. You don't want to have that roller hit a corner three, hit a guy for an easy corner three. And the Lakers did a good job on that. In the first half, they had a 21-point advantage on the three-point shooting. You give a team like the Lakers that advantage because they usually don't have it. They set a record for three-point shots, three-point makes the second game in a row. And if they're shooting that well the rest of the playoffs, then it's going to be lights out.
I feel like the Blazers could exploit that matchup if they just made one more pass. So get it to Nurk. He drives in. He passes it to the corner, man. Because they're trained not to leave the corner open, they're going to do a hard closeout swing, hit the guy at the slot, and it's an open look. But they haven't been making the extra pass. And
well, if you stop that corner three, it's still just arithmetic, man. 3 is greater than 2. I'll give him that 2 every time. Just don't overhelp and leave the corners open.
Yeah.
One of the things that was an issue for the Lakers today was ball handling outside of Caruso and LeBron. When they left in the hands of Kuzma or anyone else, there seemed to be a lot of turnovers that Portland could capitalize on. And that leads me to this question, and dare I say it, does this mean really that once he gets rid of his back spasms, you know what I'm going to say, we're going to see Rajon Rondo once again?
I think he's going to it's inevitable, man. I mean, how many times have Laker fans, Laker pundits, screamed about how the stats and all of the numbers say that Rondo is a liability?
That's my hand raised up. That's my hand raising up. Just let you know.
And it's at times infuriating, because I'm a real pro analytics guy, and it just drives me nuts to see our defense get shredded, and then a guy who can't really shoot well from outside take up a spot, especially when we have a traditional back to the basket center who can't shoot either. So you're taking two of the spots that really should be, when you're playing with LeBron and AD, manned by shooters. I mean, that's the formula for winning with LeBron James.
Or even in the case of hold on.
And the formula for winning with Anthony Davis, too, hasn't been to have him play the 4. It's been to have him play the 5. The most success he had with the Portland Trailblazers was when they had Mirotic playing the 4 instead of AD, moving AD to the 5. Because see, that was much more successful than Boogie played the 5 and AD played the 4. It's that spacing and room to attack the basket that you need with Anthony Davis and with LeBron James.
But the Lakers are still able to manage this with Alex Caruso, who is not a shooter at this point. And you can't even sell me on it.
Grice tonight.
Yeah, but out of how many attempts, and what is his, actually check the stats overall, what is he shooting at? But again, you see his plus minus. Again, you see all the other different things that he does out on the floor. Yeah, he can't make the perfect pass. Yeah, he can't always give you what you need, but my gosh, the effort is always there with him. So the Lakers are able to go ahead and survive, but thrive with him in the lineup and AD and LeBron. But like you said, they at least have to have two other individuals out there that can shoot the ball. Morris has been effective in his time, and he's almost seemingly gone out of the radar, but I do want to give him some props for at least providing some
good defense.
Yeah, exactly, which is something he wasn't known for, and providing the occasional shot out there, at least giving the Lakers at least another option out there in the past couple games that's been sorely needed.
Well, there's no question that Frank Vogel has a certain philosophy, and that philosophy starts with defense protecting the rim. He may be offensively converted now to an analytics guy who thinks the game starts from outside, but he still believes defense starts from the inside. So it's hard to get him to move AD to the 5, and you don't know whether. I just wish one of the press people would ask Anthony Davis straight out, AD, don't you think you ought to be playing the 5 a lot more? Is it you, or is it Pelinka because he doesn't want to worry that you're going to go to another team? Or is it the coach because he wants to play a traditional center with you? Who is really behind the lack of minutes? He's playing 16 minutes a game at the 5.
Well, it was up during the seeding games, and I think it's down now in this series. Yep. But I think if they move on, and the deeper they go into the playoffs, he's going to play the 5. Because I want to say it was like 38% this season at the 5, but during the seeding games, it was 60%. And the Portland matchup favors, at least now it's looking like it's favoring the way that Vogel wants to play with the two bigs.
I think you're right about starting Gary instead, and not instead of the two bigs. First off, those two bigs have never played together. They don't really know how to do that together.
Mm-hmm. And they don't complement each other anyway. So, I mean, they're starting because, we're missing.
They're starting because Frank is starting the two bigs,
Well, even then, I think
when you're missing Collins and when you're missing Ariza, you don't have many options. So.
Well, I think Stotts was going to start off with the two bigs anyway, because if Collins was there, he was going to start at the 4, which is something that I didn't really like at the beginning of the year, unless Collins was going to be a big-time threat to knock down the corner 3, but he didn't really play enough games to show that he had improved as a shooter. I think if we had Ariza, the starting lineup would be maybe Ariza at the 4. Yeah, I think maybe even Melo would come off the bench, which is something that he may or may not have liked. But, I definitely think that 80s minutes after 5 would definitely go up. I mean, if they play Houston, I think.
Well, they have to go up against Houston. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
I can't. Can you imagine? I mean, I do like McGee as a player, but I can't imagine him being effective or Howard being effective against Houston.
Terrell Moore. Well, I just wanted to say Terrell Moore did want to comment on something that you said, Tom, earlier. He is saying that that's a negative on your thoughts on LeBron focusing on the anger of what's going on with all the social injustice and focusing it in on a basketball forum. He's saying that he disagrees with you by saying negative. LeBron is separating the social issues from the basketball. So it's being seen by a different perspective on that. But, either which way, I see a focus LeBron. But before we go ahead and move on to the other games, I want to just go ahead and close with this. Rafael, you're down 3-1. And there's a game coming up. You talked about one of the major things as like a go for broke move per se, or at least to have them get off to a good start, is putting Gary Trent Jr. in the lineup instead of Hassan Whiteside. Is there anything else that you would want to go ahead and focus on or make changes to so that you think that it would give you a more even playing field going forward in game 5?
Yeah, I'd start Trent. And he's playing starter minutes anyway. So I start him to try to get off to a better start and then make the extra pass. I felt like all bubble, the Blazers played their best when they had Melo at the 4 and Trent, because it allowed, a pick and roll between Dame and Nurk, and the defenses had to really pick their poison. Do you stop Dame on the drive? And if you collapse in on the drive, you leave the corner open. So I would go ahead and start that. I start him. Starting the game with Carmelo guarding LeBron, if LeBron is going to be aggressive, it's never a good idea. And Trent he's fighting. He's trying to be an irritant. I really, give him credit for the effort that he's putting in. He's doing everything that he can. I think Melo is somewhat trying on the defensive end, but if he has to guard LeBron in space, it's a layup. You got to help out.
Yeah,
I think Melo is doing okay guarding like the Morris twin and maybe Davis in the post, because that's more his style of slow, physical. But offensively, I've been saying it all series, I don't want to see Melo take any shots inside the arc. I looked it up. The numbers were bad coming into this game. It was like 2 for 14 on pull-up jumpers, 8 for 28 on jumpers total. All the numbers were bad, but his highest percentage out of all the shots that he had been taking was from the three-point line. I think he was shooting 37% from 3 going into the series, but all the other stats were in the 20s. I think he maybe had a couple that synergy broke down as post-ups. But other than that, his shooting numbers have been bad, and a lot of it is because he's still playing the way that he is accustomed to playing, which is kind of hard to change who you are after like 16 or 17 years in the NBA. But his first step isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
Defenses don't respect his first step. So that pull-up jumper is going to be contested. And even if he does, and even if he does get to the rim, he's lacking that burst or pop that allows him to finish, especially over Davis or JaVale or Dwight. So I just think he needs to just be a floor spacer. His style of play is his old school style of play definitely doesn't work against the Lakers. Maybe some other teams, maybe a smaller team like Houston, maybe, or where there's a smaller wing on a switch, but he has absolutely zero advantages in the post against the Lakers.
Well, there you have it. There again was a great way to celebrate and just pay respect to Kobe on Kobe Bryant Day. It was a 135-115 victory over the Portland Trailblazers. Again, the Lakers do lead the series 3-1. Best out of 7. We're coming up on Wednesday with another game, so we'll see what happens in Game 5, and we'll be here at the Lakers Fast Break to talk about that game. But there were other great NBA playoffs games once again. Yes, Tom. Okay, I got to have the last say. Go ahead.
No, I don't need to have the last say, but I think that one thing that I really feel in answering the question that you asked, Rafael, I always thought it was playing into the Lakers' hands for them to run the pick and roll with one of their bigs. Because the play that's open, if they come out here and they're double teaming and trapping and hard hedging against Dame to make him get rid of the ball, the shot that's available is a pick and pop. That would have been a perfect play for them. That would have been a perfect way for them to use Melo, for example, because he would get some open shots that Nurkic is never going to be confident enough to take a whole bunch of those.
Well, if they can get Melo on,
Gary Trent Jr. also would be a perfect guy to get out there, because that's how you beat those hard traps like that. You have a pick and pop where you've got somebody who can really shoot a three, even if it's CJ. You know, I don't know why they never ran any of those plays where you're using a guard or doing an inverted pick and roll and. In order to combat that. That's a tactical move that I thought was a mistake by the Blazers coaching staff.
Well, I do think that if you can somehow get isolated Kuzma on Anthony, for some reason Kuzma has a little bit of an issue with Anthony. I see Anthony does have a great mid-range against Kuzma for some reason or another, but it just seems to work effectively against him. Kuzma's trying, but somehow is just not very effective against him. So if you're able to go ahead and switch off to that, there you go. But it shouldn't be reliant. The Portland Trailblazers, they shouldn't be reliant on anything Carmelo Anthony does. And I think what Rafael is trying to say is Rafael wants Anthony out there on the wing shooting a higher percentage of three-pointers, which he's more effective now at this point in time, instead of being that old Melo everyone knows, because, again, like against the taller Lakers, he is not able to go ahead and be effective like that. And the more shots he's taking, as we saw in Game 4, the more shots he was taking, he was starting to get a little bit of rhythm, but that took everybody else, especially Damian Lillard, out of the rhythm. And that's who of the Portland Trailblazers you don't want to get out of the rhythm. But if you're the Lakers, you're fine with it. I mean, if the Lakers say, go ahead, Melo, score 20 on us, that's fine, because that would prevent, I think, Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum from really going off on you, which is the biggest threat to the Lakers. And if they're going to go ahead and come back on the Lakers in Game 5. So I'm right now, I'm in the opinion, like I said, Melo can go off and be old Melo all he wants, but that was just going to take away from Damian and CJ, I think, very much so. So there you go. I mean, it is, like I said, 135-115 victory for the Lakers. Once again, I'm with LakerTom of LakerHolics.com. You know he's got a lot of great stuff and great articles that he's got coming for you today and tomorrow at LakerHolics.com. Rafael Barlowe is coming back at you with more great stuff all this week on NBA Draft Junkies. So many things to talk about, but still, there's some great NBA playoff games. So, guys, I want to head to OKC and Houston because it was the hand sanitizer game in which Houston had a chance to really go up 3-1 and just couldn't get it done. Rafael, what were your observations on the game as a whole? Because, seeing a frustrated Harden like this is something that I thought early on I wouldn't see possible. I thought at least they were going to cruise into the second round, to be quite honest with you.
And really, I think they should. If Daniel House makes that free throw, it's 3-0.
Yeah.
He missed the free throw, which it was a tie game. He makes it, they go up 1. Chris Paul missed a shot. Then this game, I want to say, like, to start the second half, they must have made, like, was it 8 threes in a row or something like that?
Yeah.
And then they just went ice cold. There was a play where Jeff Green had a wide open look in the corner, and the ball went right through his hands. And then, like the stats say that the lineup that OKC closes with their three guards was the best closing lineup in the league this year as far as crunch time minutes. And, based off these last two playoff games, those numbers are accurate because they've outplayed Houston in the clutch. And then I also feel like there were a couple plays, and it's just Harden. I mean, you have to live with his shot selection, but there were a couple plays where he shot the ball like step backs from super deep. And even though he can make that shot, I think it kind of bails the defense out when he's taking contested step backs from 35 feet, probably even further than that.
Was Schroeder a free agent? Or does he have one more year?
Yeah, I think he's got another year.
Okay.
He's been a trade target of mine several times.
Yes, I know, Tom. And he certainly played like it today. But LakerTom, I want to ask you this. Well, I think Rafael's confirming yes or no on that. With Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder, and also Gilgeous-Alexander playing that 3-guard lineup, that's really tough to stop because of the fact that they can do so much. Each of them can handle, each of them can take to the basket, and each of them can also provide some outside shooting.
Well, you have to, the thing that seems to be coming up as you look at what's happening in the playoffs right now, is a question of whether or not the Clippers really should have made that trade.
Yeah.
They really gave up a lot for Paul George, and all they got is a 2-year contract as a result of it. And you look at Oklahoma City and the way that their team is playing, and Chris Paul is nearing the end of his career, and he's got a untradeable contract and so forth, but that's just going to open up more cap space for them at some point in time. And they've got all of these draft picks that they've gotten from these deals. You look at what's happened with teams that have gone through so-called processes, like our favorite 76ers and so forth. The process that we've seen Oklahoma City go through is one that really is almost going to be a classic that people are going to GMs and training are going to be studying for years to come, because they're in a great situation. And if the Clippers end up losing somehow, and it's not impossible because they're getting out coached and they're getting outplayed, and Luka is emerging game by game as a surefire top 5. I don't know who they're going to move out of the top 5, but somebody's going to get moved out of the top 5 to make room for that kid.
Well, Rafael and I talked about it, what did we say, 2-3 years, and we think that he could very well be the best player in the NBA.
He could be.
So you still you changing your thoughts, Tom? LakerTom?
In that long Twitter conversation that we were having, Rafael, it wasn't at all that I was disrespecting Luka's game. I was just amazed at how good he was for a 21-year-old kid.
And even better
with all that Euro experience, man.
And he's better since the restart than he was this season.
I listened to the podcast of you two, and you're absolutely right about the jumps that the kid has made. It's kind of interesting. One of the things that Gerald said struck me, because I've always sort of been thinking of him as the, you always try to put players in, who does he remind you of type of thing. It makes it easy to explain to people when you're talking on blogs and so forth. And I looked at him as sort of a combination of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, because he doesn't have that uber athleticism that LeBron has. But I thought that Gerald's point was really spot on, that the guy that he's really closest to is LeBron James in a strange way. Even though they're totally different types of athletes, their game, the way they attack the basket with power moves, combined with great finesse moves and savvy basketball IQ, he's the next LeBron. Even though people won't understand that when I say that, he is the next LeBron James in this league.
Well, I think he has a little bit of, You can say he has a little bit of magic in his game. You can say he has a little bit of Bird. You can also say he has some Nash. I think you can say he has a little bit of LeBron as far as like how once he gets you on his hip, he's
a
there.
unicorn. He's just like you said.
But he also has some James Harden in his game because he's freezing you with the ball handling. Like LeBron is not really, well, he does it from time to time, but he's not really setting you up with ball handling moves because he can just go straight line. And
but he hunts out the weak defender the way LeBron does.
Yeah.
I mean, he hunted down the Clippers.
Yeah, he definitely does. But yeah, it's scary because, like I said before, he averaged 29-9, 9 in his second year. And then this break is similar to an off season. Yeah. As far as time.
It is.
He came back
better.
That's
why he was so good now. He had a whole off season there.
Yeah. And he came back better. And I think the one step for him that he needed to improve and the Mavs overall needed to improve was
3-point shooting.
Well, the clutch. I mean, I think as far as his 3-point shooting, it's never going to be really, really high because of
for the season, 32%, and he's up that.
Yeah, I'm not a big he's one of those guys where I don't think his percentage is an issue because he's like, if you say you just look at the numbers, 32%, then you say, okay, well, he's not an efficient shooter, but every shot he takes is a contested hard shot. He's never going to get assisted threes. Well, I think like James Harden, he may shoot like 35% on threes, but think how about all of them are contested step backs. But if you just take out those and put him in catch and shoot situations, he's like in the high 40s or something like that.
I'll tell you what, it's just something to see already. But yeah, I mean, so we're like I said, it's now 2-2. So there's now an even playing field when it comes to Oklahoma and Houston. So I want to hear your thoughts before we go on to the other two games. And Rafael, I mean, your thoughts. Does Oklahoma really stand a good chance now of taking the series?
Yeah, I think they do. But based off the video I saw of Westbrook warming up, I think he's coming back the next game. He looked fine in the warm-ups, which, is warm-ups like they said in the broadcast. No defense. It's just a matter of him just kind of working his way back into some decent playing shape. But Westbrook is a guy who seems like he has a backup engine as far as his motor. And I've never seen him exhausted or tired. And he plays hard every game. So I think he'll be back just because they don't want to mess around and lose and end up having to try to fight back and end up being one game away from elimination when they try to bring him back. I still think Houston pulls it out. I still think Houston pulls it out.
Well, I'll tell you what right now, Tom, any last thoughts on it before we head on to the last two games?
If Westbrook comes back, Houston will pull it out. If Westbrook doesn't come back, I think they'll lose it, and I think it's just going to be because Harden just never seems to be able to pull it together at the end of the playoffs. He always runs into some sort of problem. One game, a 3 out of 22 or something like that. He can go cold at the most inopportune moments, and James is going to have to prove that before I would say that they're going to wrap it up without Westbrook.
Well, he can't be found at a club at this point in time. So, I mean, that's something you can't say is going to be either which way at this time because he's not going to be at a club. He's going to be like everywhere else right there in Orlando. So hopefully
I don't think it's because of the clubs. I don't think it's because
that was something. Well, that was something that was targeted against him on that series, especially the series where he really collapsed as far as his performance is concerned. And he basically, from what people were saying, gave up in that game 7 and then was found partying right after. But anyways, like I said, it's now 2-2. It's heading to a game 5 on Wednesday. So it'll be very interesting to see who comes out on top on that one. But the other two games of note is Miami closing out Indiana and Orlando taking a commanding 3-1 lead on Orlando. Milwaukee giving a commanding 3-1. Milwaukee giving a 3-1 lead over Orlando. So I want to hear your thoughts, guys, real quick on Miami's dominance over Indiana. Kind of surprising to me that Indiana at least didn't get a game. But Rafael, their outside shooting, and the fact that Butler got hurt with the shoulder and they still did need him shows that there's more to this team than just JB.
Yeah, I mean, they're tough. I'm looking forward to their series against the Bucks.
Yeah.
I think this second round is going to possibly change so much. Even like going back to the last series we talked about, if there's a way that Oklahoma City wins, the D'Antoni, the Morey era, the small ball era is over if they lose in the first round.
Yeah.
That would be.
He might go to Philly.
Yeah. Well, they would probably need to work out some trade because Houston has no bigs and Philly has too many bigs. But yeah, I think the second round series with Milwaukee and Miami could also change the fortunes of a franchise because I think Miami has the guys that are strong and can move their feet to make life tough for Giannis. And Milwaukee needs to find a way to get Bledsoe and Middleton. I mean, they're struggling. And then
LakerTom? Oh, go ahead, Rafael.
Oh yeah, and so but yeah, I think that the Miami-Indiana series, I thought it was going to be a lot better, but Oladipo's not 100%. He has flashes where he looks like he's close to being back to what he was. Then Warren had the plantar fasciitis, and then, I mean, they fought. They played hard. It's just Miami was the better team.
LakerTom, any thoughts on either game?
It's kind of funny the way it's working out now. Everybody went into the playoffs looking at the Lakers second round and and Western Conference Finals being really two tough matchups. It's possible they could be two totally unexpected matchups.
Yep.
And on the other side of the bracket, everybody was thinking, Milwaukee is just going to cruise through. And yet now they look like they're going to be facing a very tough Miami team that can shoot lights out, and that's the type of team that can really give their defense trouble. And then on top of that, you go to the Raptors, who legitimately, in my mind, ought to be at least co-favorites to win the East. So Milwaukee may have a harder path to get to the finals than I think that the Lakers might have. Because the two teams the Lakers were expecting to meet haven't really played well.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. Good point indeed.
Funny playoffs, you just don't know. It's the bubble playoffs, man.
It is the bubble playoffs indeed. But again, Milwaukee dominated Orlando, taking a 3-1 series lead, 121-106. And also as well, you have Miami finishing off Indiana 99-87. Jimmy Butler was banged up with a shoulder, didn't get to play much in the game, but I think it's going to be something that's not too serious that I think he'll be coming back for. And I think they're going to get ready for Milwaukee in that second round. So I agree with you guys. It looks like it's going to be a very tough second round matchup between Miami and Milwaukee. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But before we go ahead and head on out and you guys go ahead and describe what's going on with Lakerholics.com and also as well NBA Draft Junkies, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this, and that is Brett Brown being dismissed as the coach of the 76ers. I guess there's also going to be a rebranding, pardon the pun, as far as just a redesign of the executive area as far as somebody overseeing operations and whatnot. So I want to hear your thoughts, Rafael, on the dismissal of Brett Brown today. Elton Brand, for at least now, gets to keep his job. But again, there's going to be a restructuring in place. Was that the answer that you were looking for, or was this something that was a little bit unexpected?
I figured Brown would be the first domino to fall. I hadn't seen like Woj or tweet about the restructuring of the front office, but I wouldn't be shocked if Brand is allowed to stay for one more year. But if I'm a head coach, I don't know if I want to take that job, simply because if the GM that hired me is on a short leash, then I'm in a tough situation, because whoever the new person that they bring in is probably going to want to have their own person in line. So I don't think that job, this is just my opinion, but I don't think that job will be as coveted as they probably think. If I'm a top candidate, I'm going to take Brooklyn first. I'd even take the Chicago job over the Philadelphia job, because I think it's easier to put those pieces and try to make them work than trying to make two young, stubborn guys who refuse to do what it takes to make the team win, to try to get them on the same page. So, yeah, I don't think that job is going to be as coveted as people think.
Tom, you were going to say something? Go ahead.
I agree with Rafael that the Philly job is difficult, because every time there's a general manager change, the coach just always seems to, at best, get one more year.
Yeah.
and then you bring in your own man. And then I agree with him 100% that you got two players. You got a guy in Embiid who doesn't seem to ever get in good enough shape to be able to overcome the needs that the team has, and he's, you can't decide what kind of player is he. Is he going to be a stretch five, or is he going to be a power five underneath? And then you got a point guard who can't shoot and doesn't want to shoot.
Yeah. I just want to know what he does during the summer, like.
Because we don't even know if he's a bad shooter. He just doesn't take the shots.
You have the two big products that you got out of the process, quote. And that process gave you two sensational players, but they don't fit. And then they surrounded them with pieces that were bad decisions, that were overpaid, and that don't fit. So, who wants to take that coaching job, because they saw what happened to the last coach there? And he's not a bad coach. He got dealt a really bad hand, and they should have started by taking Brand and getting rid of him.
Well, yeah, I was thinking, like, if he's such a bad coach, does he get fired if the ball doesn't bounce in that series last year on Kawhi's shot?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think that was the second round, but if that ball doesn't go in and they win, they win that series, they're in I think the Western Conference Finals, right? I mean, Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he just kind of dealt a bad hand. All their shooters, backup point guard, they didn't have that. The roster was just terribly put together. But I think he'll bounce back. I think that he comes from the Spurs tree, and those guys kind of look out for each other. And I mean, we've seen coaches get second opportunities. Like, I mean, I didn't think Vogel would get put in such a good opportunity after losing the job in Orlando. Like, what better situation can you be in?
The situation that we're looking at the 76ers,
Yeah.
He took the job. He took the job. The general manager went out the next year.
Yep. But the problem is now you've got a salary cap hell, or at least a nightmare, for at least a couple of years until you figure out what to do with Tobias Harris and Al Horford, especially Al Horford, because of his declining play and his massive contract. You talked about Chris Paul earlier being an untradeable contract. I still think at this point in time that it's not as untradeable as it once was believed to be.
It'd be an expiring. It's still got 2 years, doesn't it?
Yeah, still 2 years.
More than that. Is it two?
I think it's at least two.
I thought he signed a 5. He has.
I think
he's
3.
under contract until 21-22, and it's a player option for $44 million.
So that's pretty much a 3-year contract right there. But I don't think that's as untradeable.
Generational money for 1 year.
I think the Knicks will still look at that and still think that maybe they can do something with it. But when it comes to untradeable contracts, Al Horford's right now is probably one of the top 3 or 4.
It's going to be an amnesty in the next CBA.
Well, there you go, if that's the case. But again, there's a lot of issues there. But I agree with Rafael. I would take Chicago's position over Philadelphia's at this point in time, because it's right now a lot of things up in the air when it comes to Philadelphia, and there's going to be a lot to wait and see. I don't even know yet. Everybody talks about how Ben Simmons is as an outside shooter? We don't know because he doesn't take shots. So if you don't take the shots, he can't shoot. So most likely he is a bad shooter from there, but we don't know for sure because he seriously will not take that shot, because we've seen other players that shoot bad from the free throw line at least put up their fair share from the outside. We don't even know because he's so petrified in doing so. And in doing so, he is being a detriment to that end of the mix, but still
2 for 13 on jumpers this year. On jump shots, period. 2 for 13.
He's a hell of a defender, though, and a hell of a passer.
Yeah, again, I spoke with Rafael on our previous Lakers Fast Break at length who you would take, Embiid or Simmons going forward. So I'll pose the question to you because our audience already heard our thoughts. But LakerTom, who would you take?
Who would you take?
I said Simmons, and Rafael said Embiid.
I take Embiid.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Horford doesn't have.
He can't shoot.
Well, Embiid, when you'd probably get more assets. That's why I was thinking.
And I would think that he'd be able to post up if he had spacing.
Yeah, but then you'd still be left with Simmons.
Yeah. Well, I don't think
that's a problem.
Horford doesn't have the worst contract on his team. I think Tobias is worse. He may be younger. Tobias is under contract until the 23-24 season where he'll make $39.2 million.
Ouch.
So it's 32.7 this year, 34 next year, 35, almost round up to 36 and 21-22, and it's 37.6 and then 39.2. And what makes his deal even more interesting is he negotiated himself, no agent.
No agent.
Yeah.
Smart man.
So I wonder how did that negotiations go? Like, look, I don't have anybody else offering this type of money.
When he retires, he doesn't have to worry about getting a broadcasting job.
Yeah, that's smart. He saved himself 4% on that, but I don't think he would have had anybody else offering him that type of money.
No. But you know what? That's the way it is right now for him and the 76ers going forward. But again,
amnesty is their only hope.
Well, amnesty is Philadelphia's only hope for him and possibly even Al Horford at this point in time, because going forward, things are going to look a little bit tougher for them. They're looking for a new coach. They're looking to restructure their executive offices. Elton Brand is still going to keep his job, but we'll wait and see what plays out in Philadelphia, because it's always such a fun place to watch as far as the fan reaction. And the fan reaction and things of that nature. They love their basketball in Philly, but they remind me so much as far as the New York Knicks fans, as far as being such a vocal part of the NBA. So I'm interested to see what goes on there. But again, Brett Brown been fired as Philadelphia's coach, so we'll see what happens coming up. As far as a replacement for him going forward. But guys, it's been great. It's been fun. Lakers once again on Kobe's Bryant Day, and a tribute to the great Kobe Bryant. It was just, I guess, an awesome day if you're a Lakers fan. For Rafael, it wasn't such a great day, obviously, from the get-go. But again, he said, if we got to lose, I guess that's the way he prefers it. And again, they lost 135 to 115. Yeah, and
don't want to win a buzzer beater. I'd rather win by 40.
Well, yeah, there you go. But before we head on out, guys, I want to go ahead and give you the floor on what you guys are working on this week for each of your respective outlets. Rafael, you're first, my friend. You've got that great site, NBA Draft Junkies. You got your awesome podcast, Run the Floor and NBA Draft Junkies. And, of course, you've got your YouTube page, which is closing in on 12,000 subscribers. So if you can give him some subscribes, you go ahead and tell some great people out there that want to know more about the NBA draft to go ahead and subscribe to his YouTube channel so he can get over the 12,000 mark. It'd be greatly appreciated. But what's going on with NBA Draft Junkies this week for you, my friend?
Same every day. Every day is the same. Just trying to update the site. Like I've been saying, I'm a one-man gang. Everything on the site, from the videos to the writing, is all implemented by me. Same with the website. So it's been taking up a lot of time, but it's something that I enjoy. And I'm just working right now. I am updating the site as far as putting the second half of my mock. Once I update the actual site, then I'll put out the video so I can put that on the site and on the YouTube channel. But the last couple of videos have done well. I think the first mock I did this weekend is over 15,000 views within the last few days. So that's doing pretty well. And then the live mock draft that we did yesterday is around close to about 2,000 views. So the feedback on that has been pretty good, except, a couple people Knicks fans have been upset about their pick. And I even told one guy, said, I didn't even make the pick. It wasn't even me. But he couldn't reach out to, I think it was PD that had the pick. So other than that, I'm just working on the site. And then I will have a video on Lakerholics for the 28th pick, even though I have been preparing for 29, but it's 28 now. So I'll have that video up sometime this week. And then, if you look on my site, I have a couple of videos that I'm doing for Lakerholics already on my YouTube channel. And then I'll add the tab for my website this week also. So been keeping pretty busy, but this is a great time of year for me.
Absolutely. And you can catch all the great work that he does, NBADraftJunkies.com, NBA Draft Junkies on YouTube, and of course, his two awesome podcasts, Run the Floor and NBA Draft Junkies, on every available podcast outlet. And LakerTom, while you go ahead and talk about what you're doing and what you're up to at Lakerholics.com, I want you to go ahead and just think about some of the articles that you've got coming up in the works for everyone out there at Lakerholics.com.
Well, I've been writing probably an article every other day, basically, covering all of the different subjects. Generally, some of them are related to the previous game and observations that I make on the game. But I usually stick to a theme that is, let's say, a longer view than just the game itself, how that game and what adjustments I see in that game affect the future of different players. I'm watching Kyle Kuzma. I was really pleased tonight to see him come out and do some good three-point shooting. He had an excellent game, hit 5 out of 9 from deep. His form looks really good. I thought he again played excellent defense. And even on the plays when Melo was toasting him 3 times in a row, I thought he played very good defense on Melo. Melo's you're talking about a Hall of Fame player who can really pour it in from 15 to 20 feet when he's hot and when he gets into rhythm. So I think I'm looking at this. I'm in the middle of, I usually have 2 or 3 different articles going on at once that I'm starting to write, maybe that I started to write a week ago or something, different themes. And so I'll have something up tomorrow that'll be new, and not sure which one of the 3 articles I'm going to pull over. But I'm going to start focusing on looking ahead at the playoffs, teams that the Lakers are facing. What are the prospects if they're facing the Rockets or the Thunder? What are the prospects if they're facing the Clippers or the Mavericks? I think that there's an interesting situation to be looked at, and which teams come out of those first round playoffs between the Clippers and the Clippers situation and the Rockets situation, I think could dramatically change the prospects for the Lakers moving forward. And I even still think that all of a sudden now it looks like as I said earlier, in the Eastern Conference, that the ultimate test of who the Lakers are going to face in the finals could be dramatically different than everybody expected right from the start. The one thing that's great about everything so far is that everybody predicted the Lakers would be the team that had the trouble in the first round, and now it looks like it will be a couple of other teams that have troubles on the Western Conference in the first round, and it looks like the Milwaukee Bucks are going to have much tougher second and Eastern Conference Finals challenges than expected. So I think I'm going to be looking at different articles that look at what the ramifications of that are for the prospects of the Lakers winning a championship, and looking forward to discussing that.
I'm looking forward to it as well, and that's going to be available at Lakerholics.com. Be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.com. And of course, for us at Lakers Fast Break, if you get a chance, check us out, Lakers Fast Break on Facebook, also as well, Lakers Fast Break on YouTube. Basically, our podcasts are going up every single day. So you can go ahead and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Lakers Fast Break channel right there for you for all the recaps. Rafael and I are committed to going up every day after the games on NBA playoffs and reporting to you and recapping everything that went on each and every day, whether it's the day where the Lakers are playing or whether it's not. It doesn't matter. We'll be here tomorrow to talk about all the great things going on in NBA playoffs day 9 already, my friends. It's already going by so quickly. It's been very interesting to see. A lot of stuff has been happening. It'll be Luka and the Clippers tomorrow. I'm hoping Porzingis comes back, because do you think they could actually win 2 in a row without Porzingis, Rafael?
I wouldn't bet on it, but stranger things have happened. Like, I mean, they were down 20 with Luka on a bad foot yesterday, and they came back and won. So I don't know. I think the Clippers, all the pressure's on them, all of it. They did a lot of talking before the season. Well, I don't know if they verbally did, but just everybody expected.
Yeah. They already set a record for the worst 3 games. Paul George, the worst 3 playoff games in a row by a superstar at this level.
Bob Cousy just makes me think, like, why is Bob Cousy, like, man, he would get tortured in social media today with those numbers.
And Rafael had stated, LakerTom,
playoff games.
Well, LakerTom, Rafael had stated that he thinks that there's something amiss with Paul George. That could be the reason why he's ineffective in the first 3 games. Do you see the Clippers and Paul George continuing to have the struggles that they are, or do you see them finally just saying, you know what, we're going to separate from the Mavericks and start getting on back on their winning ways once again?
My heart hopes that the Mavericks kill them, but if I had to put money on the line, I'd put it on the Clippers.
Oh, there you go. I know they're still being favored in the series, and obviously with Kawhi there, playing so well, as Rafael and I had stated, before. If he's playing like that, all it takes is one other Clipper to go ahead and really take charge. Although, Lou Williams played well in the last game and they still lost. So you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they have these 4 great players on their team and they're not all clicking at the same time. So we'll have to wait and see if they can all click at the same time, because if they do, then it's scary for the rest of the league, including the Lakers, if all 4 can click and just get you what we all know that they can get you. But if they can't, or if Paul George is actually hurting, then who knows? The Mavericks may pull it out and may pull it out.
What I just don't want to see is Luka take it to another level, put out the Clippers, and then be a threat to the Lakers.
Yeah, because they will face probably Utah after that, which I think they can win that series. Because it would make Gobert have to defend out in the perimeter.
Yes.
But then I also think one thing Quinn Snyder is good at is if he finds a weak link in the defense, he will attack, which we mentioned yesterday. So I think they would find ways to just hunt Luka out with Donovan Mitchell.
And the teams that want to switch everything, when you got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, I mean, I don't know if I want to switch everything.
Well, that's the thing. They switched out. Kawhi switched out, and Reggie Jackson took it, and that's how the 3-point happened. So.
The right thing, man. Yeah. He switches out and he gives up the ball.
Yeah. Yep. Wow. It cost the Clippers in Game 4, so we'll see what happens in Game 5 tomorrow. But we will reporting tomorrow as far as everything that's going on in the NBA playoffs going forward. Plus, obviously, as well, later on this week when the Lakers play in Game 5 against the Blazers. Game 5 against the Lakers. So we'll go ahead and take a look and see what's going on each and every day. Go ahead, Tom. What? Are you on in 5 now? Okay. Well, he's got his prediction already out. Rafael and I will go ahead and share our predictions tomorrow on the show that's going up tomorrow. So we'll go ahead and wait and see. But it is, once again, the Lakers coming out on top. All respects and thoughts are with Kobe on Kobe Bryant Day. He did celebrate his birthday, or what would have been his 42nd birthday, yesterday. But today there was a lot of special honors in Los Angeles for Kobe Bryant Day, and our thoughts and prayers are with him. As 135 to 115 was the score. The Lakers go up 3-1 on the series. And if you have any questions for us, at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com. Well, guys, it's been great talking to you both. Cannot thank you enough for staying on a little bit extended Lakers Fast Break. I truly appreciate you guys going ahead and taking the chance to talk to me about the NBA playoffs. Looking forward to treating you all, each and every one of you out there, whether you're listening or you're watching, to more great stuff coming up this week on the Lakers Fast Break podcast.